In this video, we are now going to be sketching the graph of the hyperbola, right? So, as you have seen in the previous video, we are going to firstly look for the asymptotes. So, asymptotes. So, the two asymptotes, the first one is y equals to -2. Remember, your q is your y asymptote. Then the x value that will make the bottom 0, it's -1. So your x asymptote is -1, right? Those are the first two things you need. You need your axis of symmetry lines. Axis of symmetry lines, which are basically going to be the first one. Remember, it's y equals to x plus 1 minus 2, right? The bottom stays the same. This also stays the same for the first one, which is x minus 1, right? So the first axis of symmetry is y equals to x minus 1. And then the second one is going to be, remember the bottom, which is this part, switches, right? All the signs switch. So you have minus x minus 1, and then the minus 2 remains the same, which is minus x minus 3. Yeah? I'm going to tick the ones that are compulsory for the drawing. This is compulsory. The axes of symmetries are not compulsory. You only draw them if the question asks you to show the axis of symmetry lines. But for the sake of practice, we're going to show everything. Perfect. Then remember domain. We said domain is what? It's x element real, but x cannot be the x asymptote because that is a restriction. So x cannot be -1 because -1 is the asymptote. Then range, it's y elements of real numbers, right? But y cannot be -2 because -2 is the asymptote, right? Perfect. The other thing you need is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is also compulsory. You're always going to show it. Ne? So the asymptote, the y-intercept, and the x-intercepts. So the x-int, it's also compulsory. So these three things you always show on the hyperbola when you draw it. But the axis of symmetry lines, you only show when they ask you to. Otherwise, you don't have to show it. Okay. Sure. But so that I show you how it looks, we're going to just show everything in this case. Remember y-intercept, we're going to look for g at 0, right? Because the x value is 0 on the y-intercept, which is 2. And then you have 0 plus 1 minus 2, which becomes 1 divided by, okay. So here, if you press your calculator, you can get 0, right? So it means your y-intercept, it's 0, coordinate 0, right? And then if this is the case, I already know that the x-intercept will also be 0, coordinate 0. Why? Because I know this. I know that for x-intercept, y is 0, and already here, y is already 0. So in this case, it means our graph is passing through the origin, right? Perfect. If this is the case where the x-intercept and the y-intercept are the same, I always advise you to just get g input 1, or you can input any x value, but I always use 1 because 1 is easier to use. So I make x value 1. Let's see what the y value will be. So it's 1 plus 1 minus 2. Obviously, you can't use 1 if 1 was the asymptote there, right? For example, if you had -1 here, you can maybe do g at 2 or g at something. But don't choose a very big number. Like the smaller the number, the better. You can even choose a negative number. It's up to you. So here you get what? You get 2 divided by 2, which is 1, and then you're going to get -1, basically. So it means your other point is 1 and -1. So when your x is 1, your output is -1, right? Then with this information, we're going to now draw our graph. Ne? I'll just paste it here so that we save time, right? Let me increase its size so that you can see it properly. Right. There are some important things I need us to discuss here. Ne? Sure. So when you draw this graph, ne, the first things that you show is this. You do your asymptotes. Remember, your first asymptote was on x equals to -1. So you draw dotted lines there. And then you show that this is x equals to -1. And then your y was -2. Let's check, let's confirm quickly. Yes, our y was -2 there. So this dotted lines here represent that other asymptote, right? Okay, so you do those dotted lines, and then you show that this is y equals to -2. And then they meet at this point here, which is basically is going to be the x value is -1, which is the x asymptote, and the y value is -2. Yeah? Sure. Now, guys, I wanna show you some important fact. Ne? Where the axis of symmetry meets, it's also where the asymptotes meet. So the asymptotes and the axis of symmetry all share this point. You see, this is the first axis of symmetry. That is the other axis of symmetry. This point is the most important point. Ne? Sharp. I'll show you how to draw the axis of symmetry if you know that fact. So you have your first asymptote, which is going this way, right? Then you have your second, so you got that point there. Then you know that your axis of symmetry lines will also pass here, right? So now this is what you're gonna do. You go to your equations. The first equation of axis of symmetry was x -1, which means the y-intercept for this one is -1. Do you see it? So you're gonna plot on -1. So you go to your graph. You go to your graph. You look for -1, right? I'll show you now. -1 is from here to there, you see? And then you already have this point, you have this one, and then you join them like this. And you always use dotted lines for axis of symmetry. Ne? Then this one is the first one, x -1, which is this one. You see? I'm sure you understand how we draw it. Then the second one, let's check. The second one, its y-intercept is -3, right? Its y-intercept is -3. So you go to -3, you make a point. And then you join with that one because you already know that it has to cross there. And then you use dotted lines. That's your second axis of symmetry line, which is -x -3, right? Now let's plot our hyperbola. Ne? Remember the y-intercept and the x-intercept is the same, which is 0 and 0, which is here. And then we chose 1 and -1, which is here, and then -1 is there. So the point is there, right? Then we're gonna draw a nice curve, you see? Don't touch this as line is the asymptote, remember? So you start here, you go up like that, right? Sharp. Then this other side, you can just approximate it, ne? Sharp. But what you should know, the other thing is this. If your hyperbola is in this quadrant, the other one will be in this quadrant. If you were maybe here in this quadrant, the other one is there. So basically it works like this. If one is here, the other one must be here. If the other one is here, the other one must be there. So they are vertically opposite away from each other. Right? And the reason why we call these lines axis of symmetry lines is because they are mirror images. So what I mean is this. If I'm standing here, the distance from here to there will be the same as the distance from here to here. Do you see? Also, the distance from here to there will be the same as the distance from here to there. Makes sense. So from here to there is the same as from there to there. That's what axis of symmetry means. Eh? It cuts the graph into two equal parts, creating a mirror image. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the sketching of a hyperbola. Right. But usually when you sketch it, you don't need to show the axis of symmetry lines. Ne? You just show the asymptote and this asymptote, and then this point and that point, and then you sketch, and that's it. But if the question asks you to show axis of symmetry line, you should know what to do. Thank you very much. I hope this video was helpful. See you in more sessions of Maths Fanatics 24/7, right? Aluta continua. Don't forget to hit the subscription button and to share with family and friends. Tango.